Good morning, Professor Evans. Hope you're having a great week. Um, Today I'll be going over my research paper on affirmative action. I'll be talking about many of the central questions that I had prior to my research, as well as the questions that I continue to have. I'll be talking about the many key findings, as well as the useful resources I was able to use to complete this assignment. First, I want to talk about the many questions that I had prior to my research. One being, what was and continues to be the purpose of affirmative action? My second question, how are we determining if affirmative action is meeting that purpose? How are we determining if affirmative action is meeting its core objectives? And then the last main question, is affirmative action is it continuing to be what it was first implemented to be, or has it kind of veered off track? And so those are some of the many central questions that I had, and a lot of those questions were able to be answered um, as I was able to complete my research paper. And so I want to first kind of go over the summary. I talk about the pros and the cons, the main purpose of affirmative action to kind of gauge the audience and get them interested uh, in the topic. So I start my paper, the core of my paper, on the main purpose, right? The main purpose of affirmative action. Why was it implemented? Um, and what I was able to find that the main purpose was to give minority students an opportunity to complete, give them the ability to complete in society. I also talk about how affirmative action, when it was first implemented, was implemented to be temporary. This wasn't a long-term change. It was meant to, in a way, equal the playing field. And then once society had determined that, then they would eliminate affirmative action. And so as we know, affirmative action continues to be implemented today. And so part of the main question is how do we determine that we as a society have equal the playing field? And so later on, I'll be kind of talking about that as well. Another thing that I talk about, how critics say that affirmative action needs to be more transparent, right? What is in place to determine, right? What assessments are being implemented to say, uh, is affirmative action working? And so later on in the paper, I'll be talking about that as well. So one of the main pros that I talk about in the paper and that I've been able to pull from my research is is that one, affirmative action has been able to manage to eliminate all white only places. It's been able to not only diversify universities, but also the workforce as well. When you're looking at these corporations, when you're looking at these businesses, affirmative action has met that objective. It's been able to diversify these areas in society. Another pro that I was able to pull from my research is that affirmative action has been able to increase productivity within these companies. Through the research, they've been able to see that companies that encouraged affirmative action and diversify their companies saw a huge increase in productivity, and so that's definitely a pro that I was able to take out of my research. And then lastly, again, just being able to overall increase diversity within these areas in society is huge, and so that's one of its, and it's been meeting its main objective and continues to meet its main objective today. When kind of talking about the cons within my paper, one huge con was that um, employers or certain individuals were seeing that these people that were going through the affirmative action program were getting these positions not based on their qualifications, but because of their minority status. So they're kind of looked upon as not being qualified, um, but just being in because of the color of their skin. So that was one negative aspect that I was able to pull from my research. Also, a lot of critics of affirmative action saw it as a form of reverse discrimination. And I talk about that within my paper, how instead of basing people and getting people's a job based on the qualifications and what they've been able to do in life, but more on color. So critics definitely saw this as a form of reverse um, discrimination. Uh, the critics also say they're creating an environment where they're basically telling students minorities that they're incapable of going to college without affirmative action. So research within my paper, I was able to find that a lot of students, minority students, didn't have confidence in themselves. They didn't believe that they can do something without the help of others. And so that's one thing I was able to pull from that. Critics are saying that we were lowering the affirmative action lowers the standard, right, for a lot of minority students. And so, in that sense, I definitely was able to pull that out as a con and see that as a negative aspect of affirmative action. A lot of people, a lot of critics disagreed with the quota system, right? Hitting a certain number of diversity within the program instead of looking at qualifications. If you look at some of the cons happening today, if you're looking at Harvard, what's taking place, the lawsuit that's taking place, where the Asian community feels like they're being discriminated against. And so that's definitely one negative aspect of affirmative action. Another is that the critics believe that because of affirmative action, companies are losing a lot of qualified people for those positions. And so when you look at, okay, we're hiring based on color, we want to diversify. In that sense, you're losing a lot of other people that are probably more qualified for that position. And so I just want to close by this. I was able to learn a lot through my research on this particular topic. A lot of my answers were answered. Affirmative action has veered off slightly from its purpose, but its overall purpose is overwhelmingly contributing to our society in a positive way. We're giving an opportunity to individuals that were put in a disadvantaged environment, and we're giving it an opportunity to succeed. And so I enjoyed this paper. I learned a lot from this paper. I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much.